morning, everybody. Welcome to this baby we call The Sweat here on DraftKings Network and VSiN. We'll bring you this fine program every Saturday and Sunday morning live from 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock Eastern Time. I'm Emerson Lazio, your host for the next 2 hours. Steve Buchanan, usual suspect here, and back for the first time in studio in like a month. Congratulations, Julian freaking Edlow.
It should be noted that I have not missed a single show throughout this epic run of illness in my household.
That's true.
But it's nice to be in here.
There is a rumor that he is the second confirmed case of bird flu.
Well, that would be unfortunate because, yes, we are sitting right next to you, and that would be
We'll be
quite
fine.
deadly. That's actually going to be bad.
If we dish out some winners, we'll all survive.
If you like chicken, that has not been...
I do like chicken.
I love chicken. I love fried chicken, and it's not...
Can you imagine going through, like, COVID again?
No, dude, I can't. It's giving me PTSD right now. So let's go ahead and change the subject. Let's talk about some positive things, like all the fun stuff we have coming up in this show, folks. Final four guests, 2 of them real people live here in studio. Kelly in Vegas and CT Betts.
I brought friends for my return.
Those two will be in the studio for as much as Julian has been for the past month. And that's amazing.
And you know what? Julian is already trying to impress them by bringing in Dunkin' Donuts, but zero coconut or blueberry donuts, dude. What the hell's wrong with you?
Because serial killers have blueberry and coconut donuts.
And I love those donuts.
I know you do.
We got Ross Tucker checking in, dishing out some Tuck's takes. So how dangerous are the Texans now after acquiring Stephon Diggs? Where the Bills go from here? Plus, best bets on the diamond. Steve will take us inside the bettor's box. Bukes, how about our Red Sox here, kid? Huh?
Looking good. You know what I don't like?
I have a baseball take.
That's odd.
Go.
We'll talk about this on our new pod, by the way.
Yeah, we have a new pod. We're not saying the name of it because nobody likes it.
Yeah, we
Legal
hate the name of our
approved it,
pod.
so
Nice
we had to
pitch.
roll with it.
Yeah.
Anywho.
But Jaron Duran dyed his hair back. Did you see that? He looks awful. He looks so much better with the blonde hair.
He and Tyler O'Neill, though, hitting taters last night against the Angels. And once again, Mike Trout, just the Lone Ranger.
Once this series against the Angels is over, I will reinvest in the Red Sox win total under at whatever that in-season number is. They're just playing the A's and the Angels.
And the Mariners, who
these
are
aren't even real.
frauds.
These aren't even real teams.
But we talked about on Thursday's episode of our podcast. Like it's not. We needed to see what this Red Sox pitching staff was going to do at least. And I know it's the Angels, but the Angels through like the first week or so of the season, Steve, still a pretty decent offense.
And they got Baltimore coming up. Like it's going to unravel.
That's
coming
for the home opener on Tuesday.
And I'm willing to invest in it. That's my baseball.
All right.
Okay, but opening take here.
Yeah, let's go. We're going to work up a sweat here, folks. The way we start this show, week in and week out, every Saturday and Sunday. So either kind of looking at a bet you like, a storyline. These guys and myself can take it in whatever direction we want. Go ahead.
So I don't want to overreact just yet. I'm not ready to fire on this just yet.
Real hot start.
Well, but this is like, this could be detrimental. If you didn't hear, Spencer Strider had a really bad start against the Diamondbacks last night. Something was off. The velocity was down, didn't look good. We hear after the game, getting an MRI on the elbow. That's never a good thing that you want to hear. And now suddenly, this team, which has the second best odds to win the division, like by a long shot, minus 360 for the Braves to win the division, are suddenly looking like a little flimsy in that rotation if Spencer Strider is gone. And this is why it's looking flimsy. So you have Spencer Strider, obviously at the top of that rotation, one of the best pitchers in Major League Baseball right now. If he has to miss the entire season because has to get that dreaded surgery if something is wrong with that elbow, holy crap, does that rotation look bad suddenly? Because you have guys like Ronaldo Lopez, who's in that rotation, who hasn't pitched more than 100 innings since 2019. You have Chris Sale in that rotation, who has thrown a total of 150 innings.
Well, he's an Iron Man.
Uh-huh.
I said he's an Iron Man.
He's the Iron Man.
He's been looking good. Velocity's back up, Steve, now that he's out of Boston.
Right, okay, fine, but he hasn't thrown he's thrown a total of 150 innings in the last 3 seasons. You had Max Fried, who is a good pitcher, don't get me wrong, but looked really bad in his first start there. He was out after he didn't even complete an inning of work. And the Braves have the luxury of locking up all of their core guys. So they're going to have that same team for years and years. They don't really have answers in the minors. if you look at the top prospects for the Braves do not have a strong farm system at all. They have 2 total prospects in the top 100 in Major League Baseball, and their top pitching prospect, which is A.J. Smith-Schwarber, they're looking to go slow with him. He's only throwing a couple innings to start. Like, he's not ready to come up and potentially take that spot for Spencer Strider. So obviously nobody left on the free agent list. So I'm not ready to fire on the Phillies just yet, because this is a long season. But losing Strider and then those guys left in the rotation, that's going to be tough to sell. That's going to be a tough sell. This offense is going to put up 1 billion runs. But it becomes difficult when you don't have that strong pitching behind the offense to keep you in these games. They're going to have these slugfests if that's the case. They're going to have to be winning these 9 to 7 games if this rotation takes as big of a hit as it is. And that's not including Lopez and Sale, how they're going to hold up as the season progresses. Go ahead.
And let's say worst case scenario here. I mean, the guy's 25. He's already had Tommy John surgery. He had it back in 2000. Talking Strider. He already had it back in 2019 when he was with Clemson. He needed 9 strikeouts Friday night to become the fastest in MLB history to reach 500 Ks. So still 5 strikeouts.
And again, we don't know if anything's going to happen.
No, we don't.
But it's something to watch because the Braves are so heavily favored right now. They have the best division odds aside from the Dodgers, who are already minus 650, and we're what? 9 games into the season at this point.
The betting impact of this, the fallout of this, could be huge on the DK Sportsbook. Absolutely.
I'll ask you a quick question before I go. Let's say Strider gets ruled out for the season.
Yeah.
Who do you go bet for the division? Is it the Phillies?
It's a 2-team race in that division because Mets are going nowhere. Marlins have won 1 game, I think.
Oh my God, they lost like 8 or 9 straight.
7 in a row, and the Nationals forget it. So it's
so
either the Braves
or
you have to bet the
out.
Phillies.
Okay,
yeah, of course.
All right, what do you got here, kiddo?
All right, the Final Four is tonight, but we are spending plenty of time on that later in the show with CT Betts and Kelly in Vegas, so stay tuned for all of that. Okay. I am going to get some quick NBA warm-up in here because the regular season ends 8 days from today, Sunday, April 14th. And 2 of the days remaining, we don't even have games. Monday night is the national championship in college hoops. They always take that night off to let everybody watch the college game. And then nobody plays a week from today on Saturday because everybody plays on Sunday in the NBA. So there's not that many NBA slates left. But if you want to pay attention to these, it's really tough to bet pre-flop. But in-game wagering is what it's all about right now in the NBA. Prime example, last night you have the Celtics laying different numbers throughout the day. I think it wound up 8.5 is where it closed. They sat Derek White and Jaylen Brown, but played their starters throughout the game. And then they start to sit some in the fourth quarter. And then finally Tatum comes out of the game. And the Celtics, who have a huge lead, still playing to win, but with all backups and third stringers, Sacramento comes back, ultimately loses by 1, but you could get them plus double digits throughout the course of that game. The Celtics, obviously, they're 61-16. They not only have the East wrapped up, but they have the best record in the NBA wrapped up. So they have home court in the NBA Finals if they get there. Nothing to play for other than momentum and preserving health. So these are things to pay attention to in these games where Celtics may play guys a little bit. Then, when you see that bench come in, just go the other way. Another team's just not playing well, the Bucks. The Bucks just became the first team in 30 years to lose 3 consecutive games outright as double-digit favorites.
Also, weren't they all to lottery teams, too?
I think they were. So 12.5-point favorites to the Wizards, 12-point favorites to the Grizzlies, 14.5-point favorites to the Raptors. Lost them all outright. So normally I would say at this point in the season, look to fade those lottery teams because they're just trying to get their L's in so they can get their lottery position. But the Bucks are playing dreadful right now. So just follow some of these, I don't want to say trends, but positions that some of these NBA teams are in. Teams that are trying, Sixers, Heat, Bulls, Hawks, they're all right there battling for play-in position in the East. Out West, Suns, Pelicans, Kings, even though they came up short. Lakers, Warriors, they're all trying to make a push. Rockets are probably out of it, even though they're still giving it a go. There's some teams that have motivation, and there's some that just don't. And knowing that when you're coming into these games and waiting to get a better number pregame when you see what some of these rotations are going to look like is a pretty good spot right now in the NBA.
All right, just real quick, did you watch UConn and Iowa last night?
I did.
Yeah, I mean, that was incredible. I haven't watched this much women's college basketball, I think, in years.
That was a moving screen, by the way. I know nobody wants to see the game like that.
It was not a moving screen. All it was her elbow releasing after she hit a screen, dude. Trust me, I play men's league, man. I know what I'm talking about here. But it had up-and-comers really announcing themselves last night. We had outstanding performances, star-studded matchups. But once again, the officials, buzzkill, making the story about themselves.
Your take?
That was the
wrong take.
What? Was it a good take?
Your take is wrong.
No, it's my take, so it could be wrong or it could be right. But it's unfortunate because that is what everyone's going to remember from last night here. The women's game is
welcome to sports.
The women's game is better than it's ever been. Steve, you haven't been watching women's college basketball. Shut the hell up.
It is better than it's ever been, and the call was correct.
And players putting on spectacular shows like all year long here, and it's culminating in this NCAA tournament that's been by far more captivating than the men's tournament, and officials cannot keep up. They're terrible for the women's game. The game is at an all-time high, especially when it comes to betting as well. I'm sure Mitch Moss and Polly Howard will be talking about this later today from DraftKings Sportsbook in Scottsdale, Arizona. 3 to 6, special edition of Follow the Money leading up to the start of the Final Four games. Ton of special guests as well, including Mike Golick Sr. So make sure you watch right here. Go join him in person. You know who's going to join us next? Ross Tucker. Let's see which win totals he likes right now in the DK Sportsbook. Everybody, another big NFL star is on the move once again. So let's bring in our big NFL star, former one, to break it all down. Ross Tucker here to dish out Tuck's takes. Good morning, friend. How are you?
I am doing great, Emerson. I'm so glad you said that because when you first said another big NFL star, I was like, oh, cool, he's talking about me.
Yeah.
And then you said, is on the move. I was like, oh.
Yeah, sorry. Hey, but at least we are starting with your favorite team that you played for, and that would be the Bills. Shipping off Stephon Diggs to Houston, a massive offseason continuing here for the Texans, Ross. What message are they sending by making this move?
Oh, man, Emerson, I said this on social media immediately after the trade went down earlier in the week at Ross Tucker NFL. The message is really clear. They're going for it while C.J. Stroud is on his rookie contract, right? He can't even get a new one till after his third year. He's going into his second year. I think a very compelling argument can be made that he just had the most impressive rookie season we've ever seen. I'm aware of Justin Herbert. I'm aware of Andrew Luck, RG3. What Stroud did with that receiving core, that O-line, the injuries they had, it was beyond impressive. You know, I've had people in that organization tell me they think he's as good as anybody they've ever been around. So I think the Texans realize that. I think they realize that they have him for a lot less than he's worth. I mean, he's already worth $50 million a year probably based on how he played last year. So he's not making close to that. They're going to spend the money now. They're going to bring in guys like Danielle Hunter. They're going to bring in guys like Stephon Diggs and try to take advantage of the edge they have, the value they have of Stroud being on a rookie contract. And I love it. I agree with the idea.
And look at their odds movement, too. We're talking the Texans, their Super Bowl. They go from plus 2,500 to plus 1,600 to win the whole damn thing. Why is Diggs worth this movement here, Ross? He's coming off his worst season as a Bill. He's going to be 31 years young.
You know what? It's so funny. I think that's twofold, really, Emerson. I think number one, he's a good player, right? And so what that means about him adding a good player to the Houston Texans, I think it's more though like the mindset, right? I think it's more what I said in answering your first question about the Texans being all in, right, for this year. I think trading a 2025 second round pick to get Diggs now sends a message to everyone, including us that might be inclined to wager on it. Wow, the Texans know they got something legit here. And they're not messing around. They're going for it. They know they're in a division that's very winnable. They can get a good seed in the playoffs. Like they think they have the guy and the ability to do it now. So if the Texans think that, then probably more of us should think that. And the Diggs move is the proof that they really do believe that.
And some back and forth on Twitter with Diggs defending himself here, Ross, as one of the reasons he makes Josh Allen as good as he is. Some numbers back that up, especially when you consider the way Josh Allen played his first two seasons and then once they finally brought in Diggs here. So let me get Tuck's take. Josh Allen, does he need a top-flight wide receiver like this? Is this going to hurt Josh Allen and the Bills?
Well, so first of all, the Bills are going to get another receiver, right? Like that's going to happen, whether it's via trade, whether they move up in the draft to get one higher in the first round. Maybe they just select one where they're currently slated to pick. Their receiving room is not settled by a long shot between now and what it will be week one. Does having a really good receiver help a quarterback? Yeah, duh, of course it does. But look at how the Bills performed the second half of the year.
Yeah.
Look at how the Bills played after Joe Brady became the offensive coordinator. Look at Stephon Diggs' numbers, or maybe lack thereof, and look at the Bills' winning and success when that happened. I think that the Bills kind of proved the second half of the year that they can play well and they can win games without having a receiver making that much money.
Yeah, that's a good point. Josh Allen led the NFL in total yards and touchdowns and did so without Diggs having a 100-yard game after week 6 last season. Texans win total 9.5. Bills win total 10.5 here, Ross. Which one are you more likely to bet?
Yeah, I think I would go with the Texans over. I really would. I think the Titans are not going to be very good. I think the Texans are still better than the Jaguars, your Jaguars.
Yeah,
Emerson.
America's team.
I think they're better than the Colts. I would be surprised, quite frankly, if the Texans don't win double-digit games this year, whereas I probably would have a slight lean to the under on the Buffalo Bills. Getting to 11 wins is not going to be easy with all the guys they jettisoned this offseason. So I would take Texans over 9.5 instead of the Bills going under whatever, the 10.5.
Yeah, and Bills currently still the AFC East favorite at plus 160, but that's slightly ahead of the Dolphins and the Jets at plus 200. Which other win totals stand out to you right now in the DK Sportsbook? Anything, Ross?
Yeah, so first of all, and we talk about this the last couple of weeks on the Even Money Betting podcast, I love the DK Sportsbook. Yes, I'm biased, but the first one to put out this season win totals, amazing. I don't understand the Steelers at 8.5. They've never, under Mike Tomlin, had a losing season. Never. And now, even if both quarterbacks play mediocre, that's still an upgrade on what they had with Kenny Pickett and Mason Rudolph last year. And they have 2 bites at the apple. Let's say Russell Wilson doesn't play well. Okay, bring in the other apple. Bring in Justin Fields. I love the fact that they gave themselves options at obviously by far the most important position. I don't like the Steelers over 8.5. I love it.
And then the Titans have also had a good offseason here, Ross. They replaced Henry with Pollard. They signed Ridley. They traded for Snead, which looks even better now because he's done damn well against Stephon Diggs in his career. 3 catches, 37 yards on 10 targets in 5 games. Which teams are some of the winners of the offseason so far?
Well, so certainly the Titans have spent a lot of money, which I think is interesting. I mean, I guess they're the winners, Emerson, in the sense that they've brought in a bunch of guys. I would say that they clearly overpaid, in my opinion, for Calvin Ridley. I mean, that's the reason why he went there, right? Overstaying in Jacksonville or New England.
Yeah, he said it himself. He's like, I wanted the most money, and the Titans were willing to do it.
Bam. Hey, Calvin, I'm right there with you, bro.
Yeah.
I'm right there with you. Plus, Nashville's amazing. No offense to Jacksonville, but Nashville's awesome too. And then you've got Tony Pollard, who the Cowboys didn't really want anymore. I like the Snead selection, right? Getting him there via trade. But I think what they're telling us, Emerson, really, and I think this makes sense, they want to see what they have in Will Levis. So that's why you bring in Ridley to play opposite Hopkins. You bring in Tony Pollard. They need to find out really this year if Levis is the guy moving forward, or if they have to go back to the drawing board next year.
I know. And the Titans, I feel like the past 3 years here too, Ross, have been like, all right, we finally have our quarterback of the future. Now we're expecting in the draft this year, maybe 3-4 quarterbacks to go off the board at the top of the draft here. Which quarterback prospect are you most excited about?
Seems likely that the top 4 picks will all be quarterbacks, so that at least there'll be 4 quarterbacks going in the top 15 picks. Be curious to see who those 4 are. Does it become 5 when you talk about Drake May and Penix and McCarthy? For me, though, it's Jaden Daniels. He actually reminds me a lot of Lamar Jackson. I think maybe that's a lot of body type. I think Daniels, though, is almost as explosive, as athletic, which is hard to do, obviously, but he's close. But he's definitely a more polished passer than Jackson was coming. I don't think the arm's as strong as Lamar's, but I think he's a little bit further ahead than Lamar was coming out. I'm excited to see Jaden Daniels. Sounds like he'll go number 2 to Washington, which would be gigantic for them.
Over 4.5 quarterbacks selected in the first round, minus 250 on the DK Sportsbook. Under that, plus 200. May not even be the deepest class in this draft coming up in a few weeks. How stacked is this wide receiver group?
What's really weird about it is we now say this every year.
Yeah, we do.
Say it every year. And I think what's happened is I think we've had more guys that used to be running backs or try to be running backs playing wide receiver. Quite frankly, I think because of what wide receivers make now and how high profile they are, I think some guys that used to try to play basketball, in college, right? Like Division I type basketball players, 6'3", 6'4", whatever. I think they're realizing, man, 6'3", I got a better shot in the NFL as a receiver than I do in the NBA as a point guard. 6'3" is not even that tall for a point guard in the NBA. So I think and also the proliferation of 7-on-7s. Everybody plays 7-on-7. When I was coming out a long time ago, obviously, there was no 7-on-7. So I think just the passing game in general, receivers in general, get the ball a lot more like in junior high and in high school than they ever did before. So they're more ready for college. And obviously with all the passing offenses and stuff, it's crazy because I hear people saying Keon Coleman's not that good, and they've got like 5 guys ranked. I saw Keon Coleman have some of the most ridiculous plays I've ever seen this year. Yep. It's amazing to me that he's not considered a top 5 guy.
Well, hopefully we'll bring you back soon before the draft. We can break down offensive linemen, my friend, because I know that is your bread and butter. Thanks for making time for us. If you want more of our beefy friend, you're in luck. Catch him on DraftKings Network, everybody, throughout the week. Quite active on Twitter as well. Coming up next, Steve returns with his best bets around the diamond. All right, folks, a little more than a week now into the Major League Baseball season. We've had it all. Shohei Ohtani has
Turning heel.
It's
WrestleMania weekend. He's turning heel.
I absolutely love this story, by the way. The woman who caught his first home run ball as a Dodger didn't want to give it back.
And the franchise bullied her.
They really did. They really did. So
Allegedly.
I think she got like a signed bat, couple hats.
Not even a signed bat. Just a bat.
Just a bat.
Just a bat.
Okay, wow. So that's the latest. That's why you watch this show, The Sweat.
Yep.
Also, the ball would have been worth around $100,000. Shohei said he met the fan and the family. That turned out to not be true. What would you have requested in return if you caught his ball?
Oh.
Would you have given it back first?
I'll give the show answer, then I'll give the real answer.
Okay, all right.
Yes, I would have given it right back to him. He deserves it. The real me is like, cut me a check.
Yes.
Cut me a check right now.
That's what I'm saying.
This economy sucks. Give me the money. That's
Absolutely.
Right.
With
But I would have
inflation
been like,
and everything.
I'd love to give you the ball back, of course. No problem.
Hey, I say embrace it. Embrace being a villain, Shohei, because I know you're watching right now.
Or, you know what I would say? Got any good bets for tonight?
Got any good bets? All right, we've had tons of dudes beefing as well, and injuries, man. Lots and lots of injuries as Steve Buchanan, as you could tell, has returned. He's going to take us inside the bettor's box right now. How do some of these injuries, I guess, moving forward, and we talked about the Strider one and the impact this could have, depending on how serious that injury is. How will these affect your approach moving forward as you take a gander at bets on the DK Sportsbook here? We have a lot of stars who banged up just last night alone.
Yeah, last night alone was brutal. You know, you mentioned Strider, Trevor Story, who absolutely dislocated his shoulder last night. Like, if he didn't, like, I'd be shocked.
And you know, we talked about it on our podcast, Steve, that...
And you should say the name because people do need to find it.
Okay, all right.
But
What is the name? Because I forgot, because I don't even say it.
Since 1901, a Boston baseball podcast. We hate that name, but that's how you find it.
I really do like this podcast. A lot of people, we've been receiving some positive feedback on it because they're only 10-minute episodes. So put it on as you're emptying the dishwasher, taking out the trash, walking the dogs, whatever. 10 minutes. You can do anything for 10 minutes. Trust me. So we said Trevor Story sucked against Seattle. All of a sudden started getting his you-know-what together against the A's. He started heating up here. Yeah. So this is a bummer. This is a guy who said, I want to play 155 games this season, something he's done once in his career.
And that is most certainly not going to happen
Nope.
now. I mean, at the minimum, with like a separated shoulder, like you're out 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Minimum. But there was another big injury last night, and that is going to lead us to our first bet of the day.
Talk to me, Goose.
Great segue. I went to school for this. But Luis Robert left last night's game. They're saying it's a left hip flexor, so he's probably going to be out at least a week. And that just makes this White Sox offense even worse, if that was even possible. So we're going to be betting the Royals on the run line tonight at -1.5, and you're getting that at -102? Yes, you are. It's still -102. So they just lost Luis Robert. This White Sox team has scored 13 runs this season. I think the Rangers just scored that last night. Yeah, 13 runs through 7 games. Luis Robert has knocked in 4 of them. Quick math says that he has knocked in about 31% of the total runs that the White Sox have scored this season. Without Luis Robert, nobody, and I mean nobody on this team, has knocked in more than 2 runs on the entire roster.
We talked about it on this show last week or the week before. We mentioned White Sox could be in the conversation for worst baseball team this season.
Yes, they most certainly are. The White Sox and the Rockies are going to be the 2 teams that are in the running for the worst team in the league. But back to this bet here. So you have the issues with the offense. Then you have the White Sox, who were probably the only team on the planet that would have signed Chris Flexen this offseason, gave him a 1-year deal, $1.75 million. You and I could go out there and pitch as well as Chris Flexen does for half of that amount right now. In typical Chris Flexen fashion, first start he made of the season, he lasted 4 1/3 innings, 4 runs allowed on 6 hits, 3 walks, and that was against the Atlanta Braves. Going up against the Royals today, who are starting Michael Wacha. They should win this game by at least 2 runs. Give me the Royals -1.5 on the run line.
What's been biggest surprise through like a week or so this season? Is there a team that's really stood out to you, either for good reasons or bad reasons?
Yankees' hot start was very surprising.
And then they failed to score a run in their home opener.
Correct. They could not, and that was the first time that happened since 1967. That they were shut out in their home opener. That's absurd.
That's a long time ago.
That is a long time. That was like a few years after Kennedy. That's just how long ago that was. Don't ask me why that was the example I used, but that was the first one that popped in my head.
Since 1901.
That was a long time. But speaking of the Yankees, We're going to get to our game total bet.
Oh my
This is
God, we
amazing.
are the Segway Kings.
We really are.
On this show. Again, go to school for this, kids.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. Don't go to school.
You
for
didn't go to
broadcast
school for this,
journalism.
did you?
Yeah, and then I was a coaching minor as well, which is why.
What was your major?
I was broadcast journalism, and it was a waste. I should have become like a lawyer, and then I still could have done.
Yeah,
this.
I was
Or
going to say,
a
you should have
doctor or
focused on your
something.
minor. Let's talk about the game total for this Blue Jays-Yankees game, which is at 8.5. Looking to take the under in this game.
Yeah, it's
Kevin
8 right
Gausman-
now, Steve.
Oh, it's 8, so it's already going down. People looked at my notes. Kevin Gausman going up against Clark Schmidt in this one. Toronto started off really hot, and I say started off really hot within the week of, first week of the season here, but they're just averaging 2.8 runs specifically over their last 5 games. As a team this season, they're hitting under the Mendoza line. They're hitting 179 as a team with a 279 on base percentage. So this team is just not getting on base even to get these opportunities to get some runs in. These two teams have been excellent at with the under so far this season. Combined, they are 10-5 to the under on the game total so far this season. Yankees themselves 6-1 to the under so far this season, which is pretty surprising because of how well they've gotten off in that start in that first series against the Astros. But if you look back, those games were a lot of low-scoring games. That's kind of been the name of the game so far for both the Blue Jays and the Yankees thus far. So I think the under is the right play in this one. You obviously has a Cy Young caliber pitcher going for the Blue Jays in Kevin Gausman. You got Clark Schmidt, who's an average at best pitcher, but with how bad this Toronto's offense has been so far this season, I feel comfortable with backing him as well. So give me the under in this one, which is now 8 runs for this.
Judge, Torres, Verdugo, they're all just scuffling at the plate right now. Something I didn't think we'd be saying at this point in the season here, Steve. Anthony Volpe has posted a batting average more than twice as high as Aaron Judge right now.
I mean, to be fair, he was one of their top prospects for a reason.
Yeah.
Obviously that's why they wanted to bring him up as soon as they did, and he's starting to show in his sophomore season that this could be the year for him.
Taking a series on the road over Houston, Arizona. That was all with Garrett Cole on the IL.
Yep.
Okay, what's cooking next here as we go to props? Let's start with some player props here.
Yeah, so this is one of my favorite bets to take if you think that a pitcher is not going to go deep into games. And DraftKings Sportsbook is one of the only books that really offers this, and this is outs recorded by a pitcher. So we're going to go with Jake Irvin, who on the Washington Nationals, to go under 15.5 outs recorded. If you look at his numbers last year, he only made it to 6 innings in 8 of his 24 starts. So for the over to hit, he has to record an out in the 6th inning. He has to record 1 out in the 6th inning. That is not something that he has done often. Like I mentioned, 8 of his 24 starts last year made it into the 6th inning. He's not a strikeout pitcher by any means either. This is somebody who relies upon contact, and his command is very shaky as well. So he puts a lot of traffic on the base pass, and obviously when you're getting that, you're just asking kind of for a recipe for a disaster here, because if they start collecting some hits here, that's going to knock them in. And they're going up against a very good offense here with the Philadelphia Phillies, who could not get to over 4.5 team total last night, and that was very frustrating because they left 13 men on base. That being said, he also really struggles against lefties. Last season had a .366 WAR against them. 14 of the 20 home runs he's allowed. There's a lot of lefties in the top of that Phillies lineup. You got Schwarber, you got Harper, you got Bryson Stott. That's going to be 3 of the first 5 batters that he's going to face, so you can get into some early trouble there. I think this is a good spot to back him to go under 15.5 outs recorded for Jake Irvin.
And just real quick, having to do with the Phillies, going back to the NL East and that Strider injury. So the Braves still the favorite in that division, minus 360.
By a long shot, yeah.
Is it worth considering maybe sprinkling something in the Phillies right now, plus 340, if you're thinking the Strider injury could be very serious?
I would say if you are already backing the Braves to win the division, if you're already invested in that, I think it is worth putting something small on the Phillies to kind of just hedge yourself at that point here, a little bit here, so you're not taking so much of a loss. I mean, at the end of the day, I do think the Braves are in a position to win that division because they are so loaded. But if Strider is out, that is such a massive hit their rotation. You can't afford to lose a guy like that, especially when you don't have someone who's comparable to back you up in the minors, and there's nobody in the free agent market to go at this point. So I think if you are already invested in the Braves to win, I don't think it's bad to hedge yourself out. If you're not invested at all, I'm not looking to fire away just yet.
All right, before we go to break, any game props that you like to on the DK Sports?
Yeah, I like the Rangers to go over 4.5 runs today. I think this is a really good spot to back them. I mean, they've just been an offensive juggernaut so far. They're going against the Astros here today. They're averaging 6.4 runs per game already this season. Like, they have put double-digit runs up, I think, 2 or 3 times already in this short span that the season has been going on right now. Astros are running out J.P. France to make his start in this one, and the bullpen for Houston has been atrocious. This is one of the reasons why they were swept by the Yankees in that opening series. 6.58 ERA for the Astros bullpen already. That's through 26 innings of work. So it's not obviously not a big sample, but it's not a small sample here either. They're walking a ton of guys, 5.5 walks per 9 inning for the Houston bullpen already, and they've given up a league-leading 7 home runs already for that bullpen. Give me the Rangers to go over 4.5 runs.
Let's not forget, the Rangers have a lot of the guys in their starting rotation on the IL, so this lineup is demonstrating more than enough firepower to carry them into October. We are rewarding your 10 minutes of work, Steve, by giving you the next hour off to go mingle by the snack wall. Jeff Ulrich is standing by with some hockey bets today. There's less than 2 weeks to go now in the NHL regular season, and while the race for a playoff spot is more or less over in the West, it's the complete opposite in the Eastern Conference here, people. We'll get to that in a second. Let's get the 411 and all the fun live with our Canadian companion, Jeff Ulrich of DK Network. All smiles this morning. Look at that handsome face. After our Oilers secured a playoff berth last night, this is our year, Jeff. This is our year.
This is it. Absolutely nothing can go wrong here, pal. I mean, we're going to cruise right through the Western Conference, get to that Stanley Cup, get a sweep. It's all going to go correct. There's no problems on the way, of course.
Gosh, those of us from Western Canada, we have been waiting our entire lives for this, it feels like. 11 games on this Saturday slate, Jeff, including a marquee matchup between the Panthers and the Bruins around 3 o'clock Eastern time, who hold a 4-point lead, by the way, over the captivating Cats of the Atlantic. What bet do you like in this one today, Jeff?
I think there's a little bit of value. There's actually a couple angles I like to this game. I think that the over at 5.5 is actually pretty appealing. Boston's been scoring pretty well. The Panthers offense got their mojo back. Sam Bennett, Sam Reinhart got up on the score sheet after slumps for them. Matthew Tkachuk came back from an illness. I think 5.5 is pretty low for these two offenses. I know that they both kind of trend sometimes towards more defensive styles as well and good at limiting chances, but that's a low number in this matchup. And I do like just taking the Panthers as well, straight up on the money line in this game.
Even though Jeff, the Bruins 3-0 against them this season.
That's true, but let's go back to last year's first round playoffs and remember that the Panthers also eliminated the Bruins. The Panthers, like I said, went through a bit of a slump. They were down a couple players though. Tkachuk had to miss a game with an illness. Verhaeghe has been out. Tkachuk is back. They really just seemed to get their mojo back in that last game. I think it's pretty good value. This was plus 100 last night. It's down to minus 102 on DraftKings. I still like that number for Florida.
All right, dude. Well, looking deeper into this matchup and into this series here, Jeff, Bruins have won 3 straight. And before Florida's shutout win over Ottawa on Thursday, they were 2-7-1 in their previous 10 games here, dude. What's the postseason outlook for both of these teams? Now, they both have clinched up to this point.
I think that you can make, if I'm being dead honest, I feel like you could almost make the argument that both these teams maybe just a little bit overvalued in the market. Florida is still plus 350 to win the Eastern Conference. The Bruins are a little bit better at plus 500, but the thing about the Bruins is there's no Bergeron this year. It's going through a bit of a change. They have had trouble in the playoffs. Let's just admit it. First round losses, second round losses, even the last time they got to the Stanley Cup, they got swept. It's been a tough go. I think that they have a realistic chance, depending on the draw, to get out of that first round. But Tampa's there in the 6th seed. I don't really like taking the Bruins as a longer shot. I think that Florida has the better chance to go longer, but they've had their issues at points this year as well. I do like Florida. I would like this number to dip a little bit more, on them as for the Stanley Cup. They're still a plus 700 on DraftKings. If this got closer to plus 900, plus 1,000, I'd be more interested on them. But I don't know. I'd probably lean the Hurricanes or, even the Rangers in this spot in terms of just teams I like a little bit more. But I still see a path for the Panthers. But like you said, it's been a pretty bad slump. Yep. And, they still have potentially a Tampa Bay matchup to deal with in the first round. We'll see how that shakes out. If they can avoid Tampa, I'll like them against the Leafs specifically.
Well, yeah, we talked to Anna and Pete last week. The Lightning are a team that nobody wants to face in the first round. They've been ... electric. 8-1-1 in their last 10 games here, Jeff. They have clinched a postseason spot. They did so last night from their couch, thanks to the Red Wings' loss to the Rangers here. What you think about their odds to win the East? You just mentioned the Panthers here, so I think they were plus 350 to win the East, and you got the Lightning at plus 1,200 on the DK Sportsbook.
You set it up perfectly, right? I think that in a matchup between Florida and Tampa Bay, which is still a possibility for the first round, I think that would be a pretty even series. I'm sure that the Panthers will be big favorites, but I don't know. I mean, I don't think that it's obviously I give the edge to Florida, but it would probably be pretty close to a coin flip for me, to be honest. This Tampa Bay team really benefited from their trade deadline acquisitions. They weren't overly crazy. They didn't go and, get like the biggest player, but they got Anthony Duclair, they got Matt Dumba. These are really good depth players. And I think that's really all Tampa Bay needed. They just need a little bit of depth scoring, a little bit of help on just the secondary to help guys like Braden Point, Stamkos, Kucherov, obviously. So, yeah, I mean, I like Tampa Bay. I think the plus 1,200 has come down, obviously. If you got this like even a week ago, it was probably in the plus 1,800 range, if I can remember correctly. But even at plus 1,200, they're bigger than the Leafs. Like, I would rather take a shot with the Lightning than the Leafs at this point. I just don't think Toronto has the goaltending. Vasilevsky, this Tampa Bay team has shown us so many times they can just flip the switch. They're just that veteran team that can do it. And I still think that they've got enough players in their prime to do that. So, yeah, it's a pretty appealing number. I will say this. My favorite bet still right now of all conferences, the Nashville Predators plus 1,800 to win the West. That's another team I think is just a little bit undervalued right now. But I do like the Tampa call out. Plus 1,200 still seems fair for this team.
Yeah, I think the West is going to be an absolute slugfest when it comes to the
wide open
postseason. Yeah, it's going to be very, very fun. Let's get back to the East playoffs, though, here real quick, Jeff. This conference has a whopping 7 teams that are somehow in the fight to lock up that final wild card spot. And just about all of them here, Jeff, are stumbling down the stretch. It's like nobody freaking wants it. Islanders, Penguins, they're in action today. Wings, Capitals, they hit the ice tomorrow. Who would you give the edge to in this group right now?
I mean, we always say, oh, it's too close. Like, this is the epitome of too close to call. I mean, if you're asking me like who I like today, I mean, and this is going to change day to day, it's probably the Islanders. But here's the thing about the Islanders. Yeah, they have a game in hand over Philly. They're in a nice spot at 83 points now. They're actually in the 7th seed, but they play the Predators today at home. Yeah. Predators are a really good team. So it's hard for me to go and say, yes, I really like the Islanders right now, because if they lose this game, then all of a sudden Detroit and Washington have a game in hand, and they're kind of in the driver's seat. So that's how close this is. It really is game to game, day to day here. I do like the Islanders. I think that they've really turned things around with Patrick Waugh. They just look like a better team. I think if you're just dissecting these teams a little bit right now, I would put them as one of the top 2 teams of these groups. So I like the Islanders. I think that the Penguins more than likely run out of gas a little bit. They still traded away a lot of big players. I know they're playing well right now, but this can change so quickly. I would say right now it's like, give me the Islanders and the Flyers if I had to guess. But my God, man, like, this can change so quickly. Like I said, the Islanders lose today, the Penguins lose to Tampa today, and all of a sudden it's Washington and Detroit in the driver's seat.
Yeah.
So
I think like the Flyers have only won twice or so in their last 10 games. Islanders have canceled out all but 1 win since February 26th with the loss. And then the Red Wings have 4 wins since March 1st. The hell's going on with these guys right now?
I mean, go ahead. A lot of these teams just been due for regression. Like Detroit really, I don't think is that good. They rode a really hot power play and some really hot scoring and shooting in the first half, but they could still make it. Like I said, like, they're only a point back with a game in hand over Philly. So I think all these teams are kind of like going through the regression thing at the same time. It's just created this huge logjam of teams.
All right, so your overall best bet on today's NHL slate, what do you like? Which team are you targeting here?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to keep this pretty simple. I mean, the New Jersey Devils, I guess you could say they're still in the playoff race, but like the way they're playing, it's pretty much. I think their season got a fork put in it by the Rangers in their last outing. But this is still a team that creates a lot of chances. They score goals. They're playing the Senators, really weak team defensively. Especially in net, I should say, very weak goaltending. And the Devils themselves just allow a ton of goals. They've blown 2-goal leads in like 3 straight games or something. So the over at 6.5, this has actually gotten shorter. I'll still take it at minus 125. I'm pretty tempted to take the Devils straight up here, but I'm not going to do that. Let's just play the over at 6.5 goals. I think the one thing you'll see from this game, the Devils get some points. The Senators score because the Devils just give up so many ridiculous chances, and this game gets to like 7 or 8 goals. Also like Timo Meier for an anytime goal scorer. He's on absolute fire. And I think that, the price for Timo Meier still hasn't come down quite enough. So if you're looking for an anytime goal prop, like going back to him, he's still plus 140 on DraftKings. I think that's very fair.
All right, Jeff, we got a minute to go in this show. Just want to ask you real quick, because you do a damn good job at handing out winners, and you're a big golf guy too. Actually, Batia has a 5-stroke lead. This kid does right now at the Valero Texas Open. He's been open about his issues with anxiety. He has a ticket to the Masters on the line if he wins this thing here, dude. Who do you like to kind of close it out? Do you like him to close it out this weekend here real quick?
I think he will close it out. Ashkan Batia is a really big talent. At the same time, if I was betting this, I would wait. But let's see if Rory can go on a run. Let's see if we can get this Batia number back up to like plus 300 at some point and, go with him. But I wouldn't really invest too much in any of the chasers. Rory at plus 600, interesting, but I'd wait for a bigger number on Batia, quite frankly.
Yeah, you have some bigger names who are using this as a really big tune-up ahead to Masters Week, which on this show tomorrow, we're going to dive deeper into some Masters bets with you and Matt Brown of VSiN on the Sweat. For now, we got to take a 240-second break. Buckle up. We got college basketball Final Four bets with 2 very special guests in studio. We're handing the keys over to Julian Edlow and company next.
Welcome back to The Sweat here on DraftKings Network on VSiN. We have done a good job of dodging the elephant in the room, which is that the Final Four is tonight. But we will do that no longer. And for the occasion, some in-studio guests. Kelly in Vegas, Chris Thurston joining me on the show at CTBets16, at Kelly in Vegas on Twitter. Not many of my friends come and join me in studio. Thanks for actually being here with me.
You know, being a remote worker is always so wonderful. And I thought, hey, I'm already in Boston. Chris said, do you want to get up early?
Where the weather is just beautiful. I know you love it here.
And he's like, you want to get up early and go hang out with Jules at DraftKings? I said, let's do it.
This is great. Thanks for having us. Can't wait to talk some Final Four and talk the big event tonight.
All right. Let's kick it off with the early game, which is, as we all had in our brackets, NC State going up against Purdue. Currently a 9-point spread on DK Sportsbook, total set at 146. This has been a ridiculous run by NC State, and I feel like they're so difficult to price because you got to factor in the full season, but just like eye test over these last 9 games, this team passes it. They have all the pieces. They have good guard play, good shooters. DJ Burns is stealing everybody's heart. Kelly, we'll start with you on this one. Your breakdown, wherever you want to go, side, total, just overall feel for this game.
We'll go to breakdown here in a second, but you just brought up something that Chris and I talked about in the car. The pricing, I think, tells the story here.
Yeah.
And I think that's very indicative of how good this Purdue team is. We know they're going to get some whistles. But let's just ask like a hypothetical. If they trotted out a 7.5 instead of a 9.5, right? Because we've seen a little bit of money come down from the opening number. We even saw a peak of an 8.5 there for a minute, and then went right back to 9. I kind of have to wonder, would we have seen the same NC State bettors? I mean, these people have been betting them the whole way through.
Right.
I laid 6, I think, with Tech Sunday night when the bracket came out.
I loved that.
I loved Texas Tech. And here we are,
same.
and I'm going, where in the world were they a 6-point dog to Texas Tech and now only a 9-point dog in the Final Four? And that should tell you, hey, listen, I want to give all the praise in the world to this team, and I don't want to discredit anything they've done. You mentioned a historic run. At some point in time, the cream's going to rise to the top, and I think it is this evening with Purdue. I'm laying it, or I'm not playing it. I never want to say sharp or square side as in terms of my handicap. But this NC State team should probably be priced closer to where Alabama's priced.
Yeah.
11.5.
Agree.
It's going to be really tough, I think, for them to be able to bully Zach Edey. We saw it versus Tennessee.
Tough for anybody.
We saw it versus Tennessee, and I had a lot of Tennessee fans mad at me. I ended up laying the 3 late. Said, this doesn't make any sense. Like, what are we doing here? I wanted to give credit to Purdue, and then they couldn't hit a shot for the first 11 minutes or so, was it? And Tennessee looked like they were just going to run away with it. Purdue was done. They fought back. They did get some late whistles, and I don't want to say they didn't. I always appreciate when the refs are on my side.
Yeah.
That time they were. I like Purdue here. I'm not sure I'm going to get to the window with this team fully. I may throw a little something on it. We're going to watch the games, little fun action. I got a DraftKings app at my disposal.
There's a
throw
DraftKings
throw
app
a little
at your
money,
disposal.
throw a little money in there.
Massachusetts now. That's good.
Yeah. We'll see.
Welcome up from the sunny weather in Florida. Yes, we will be, as Kelly alluded to, watching the games tonight. Any of you in the New England area that want to join, party by Viva Tequila Seltzer at Jake and Joe's in Braintree. We're going to be watching the games. We're going to have sound on, and apparently it sounds like potentially some free Viva Tequila Seltzer and
Viva's picking the tab
food.
up.
Viva's picking the tab up. So if you want to come watch the games, have some free drinks, Jake and Joe's in Braintree is the place you want to be watching the game with us. CT, this game, I know who you think is going to win because we have the same exacta for the final at this point if you want to get into that one. But before you do, your breakdown on the spread on this one.
Yeah, I mean, Matt Painter, right? He finally gets the monkey off his back, gets to the Final Four, especially after last year dropping to Fairleigh Dickinson, the 16 seed. And that was a big thing. That you've seen Edey, you've seen all the guards talk about it. They wanted
Virginia
to do
vibes.
this for... Yep, and they wanted to do it for Painter. They love him, and they finally did it, right? So then you look at NC State. A lot of people forget that they needed to hit a 3 at the bell in the ACC semifinals versus Virginia, a game that Virginia absolutely dominated and
I don't
should have won.
forget. I had NC State in that game.
Oh, there you go. That's neither here or there, right? They've been playing good hoop for the past 3.5 weeks, and you can't take anything away from Coach Keats, right? He pretty much went from probably getting fired.
He was going to get canned. He
They lost 14 games this year.
He automatically triggered the extension so that he couldn't be canned.
Lose 14 games and you're a Final Four team. Pretty remarkable. So he's done a great job coaching in the postseason. But you look at this game, right? And Burns, absolute load down low. You said it best, Jules. Everybody's falling in love with him. But let's not forget, Burns is 6'9", okay?
It's the height.
There's
Think of him as big because he's big, but
this is a major disadvantage. Like everyone that plays Purdue, right? Going up against Edey, 7'4". That's a pretty tall task, okay? And we saw what happened to Tennessee. They got into big-time foul trouble.
Tennessee's a big team.
The refs aren't really looking to call many fouls on Zach Edey. Not just won yesterday, National Player of the Year. And then the other two bigs, Diarra and Middlebrooks, they're only 6'10", Jules. So it's going to be pretty tough to stop Zach Edey. And if they do, Jules, which I don't think they're going to be able to, they have arguably the best guards in the country that could shoot the lights out of the ball.
Yep.
And they didn't shoot it very well versus Tennessee. I don't see them having back-to-back poor performance shooting games here.
That concerns me. So as somebody who originally liked the under in this game, I think that is going to be something that was probably going to keep me off. He's absolutely right. I think NC State's going to get into foul trouble early and often. When you have those big body guys like the Wolfpack does, they are going to really draw some fouls here late. And obviously, free throws do matter, especially down the stretch.
Yes, they do.
Oh, man. I just felt that. I was like, ooh, maybe I don't want to roll with that under.
What I was going to say is whether this is a good thing or a bad thing or puts you on the over or keeps you off the under is that they do have, like you said, 3 big guys in Burns, Middlebrooks, and Diarra. So at least you got some fouls to give with.
Sure.
And it's not like you got to throw a stiff in to give the fouls. Like they have 3 rotation players that they can put on them. It's probably not going to go well for those guys, but they have them out there at least as capable players. I'm torn on this game. I took a little bit of the fool's gold at open, played a little bit of the NC State.
Yeah, 9.5.
Plus
right?
9.5. But I think Purdue ultimately wins the game. It's just a question of if this Wolfpack team is scrappy enough to keep it within single digits. This is going to be by far their toughest test. North Carolina was probably their toughest test before that, and CT and I know how that went. We were sitting on the couch that night just saying, they're going to run out of gas. They're going to run out of gas. I'll keep live betting UNC. It was NC State that had like the push and the late legs. This team keeps surprising. They keep passing the eye test for me, so I'm a little more hesitant on Purdue than you guys are, but the guards are going to bounce back from that poor shooting performance, and Edey's going to do his thing against anybody that is not Donovan Clingan, which I think could set up an interesting final. We got a few minutes left in the segment here, so I know game props here, player props here. CT, I'll go to you first because I know we have an exacta that we kind of like here.
Also, just wanted to bring up really quickly that there's a little bit of luck factor for NC State, okay? The last two games,
obviously.
Jules, the last 2 teams they've played from deep have gone 9 for 51. I mean,
They also
that's
NC State also has really good free throw defense, which is tough to master.
That's a great point. But I just wanted to bring that up.
Put the
I mean,
spirit fingers
that's
in the air.
pretty wild. You're getting pretty lucky there. Right? You're running into some. All of a sudden, teams can't hit the ocean that you're playing. That helps a lot.
Yeah.
But Jules, to answer your question, kudos to you because you gave this out on this show before the Purdue-Tennessee game.
Gave it out last week.
The exacta, and that's Purdue to play UConn in the national championship on Monday, and you took UConn to beat Purdue in the exacta, which I like as well. I bet it at even money. I think DraftKings has now moved it to minus 115 currently,
we got minus 115 on the board.
which I still think is a great bet.
Yeah, it's chalk, but like at this stage, we're talking some pretty big favorites tonight, and if we get that final, I think we know who we all like. You get
UConn at pretty much even money when they're going to be 5.5 point favorites.
Looking at a 5.5 look ahead there. Kelly, you mentioned the total a little bit. Anything game prop, player prop, anything that you find interesting in here? I think Zach Edey props are going to be popular, for obvious reasons.
Yes.
Like, what do you? I know that you're generally somebody that's the public wants to pound the over on the best player on the floor on Saturday night in the Final Four. Are you brave enough to look at any of these unders?
So I'll call myself the resident contrarian at this table.
Sure.
No, I'm not.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing I said about Caitlin Clark on Monday. And then she proceeds to go over everything. Single one of her props. That's how I feel like Zach Edey's going to be. I can make a case for the under. We can say this line is inflated. But at the end of the day, do I have the guts to place my hard-earned money on an under for him? Absolutely not.
Don't think it's worth it. I'll tell you. So Edey, 26.5 points, minus 125 to the over.
Shocker.
But
Edey rebounds. This one's funny. Edey rebounds, 13.5, minus 166 to the over.
That's wild.
Here's what's going to happen. Everybody's going to want to put those in a same game parlay. It is going to be that type of scenario. Would I be absolutely shocked if Edey went over both of those? Absolutely not. And that's the problem here. There may be some perceived value on the under. That's just not. Listen, if Purdue's going to run away with this one, it's going to be on the back of Edey. And Chris actually said something interesting in the car too, in terms of game script. If they really start to double team Edey, are those guards going to be able to hit some outside shots?
They didn't against Tennessee. We'll see if they do in this matchup. That's game one. We're going to be back on the other side of the break with game two. Alabama facing UConn with a trip to the Natty on the line. You're watching The Sweat here on DK Network and VSiN. Welcome back to The Sweat here on DraftKings Network and VSiN. If you were with us on the other side of the break, we broke down NC State and Purdue. Now we're going to go to the other one. Julian Edlow in the host chair. We got Kelly Stewart here and Chris Thurston from Wager Talk. Kelly, you got your Kelly and Murray podcast, and I know on there it sounds like you've been dishing out some UConn futures.
You know, I really wanted Creighton at 40-1. I really did. John and I went back and forth and who we wanted in a futures bet. Ultimately, our producer said, why don't we let the audience decide?
That's a dangerous game.
And at the time, Purdue was, I believe Purdue was maybe 7-1, but we got plus 750. I can't remember which Vegas shop that was, but it doesn't matter. And I thought, you know what, you chalk-eating weasels, like the last thing I want to do is have a UConn plus 750 ticket, and boy, has it been all but free money this entire run. You know, if you actually look at sometimes when you have a futures ticket, sometimes it's better to roll it over. So we were trying to show that sometimes it's better to roll it over. Well, guess what? It hasn't. Because the first time we won $31 off our $500 bet, and the second time I think we won $42. And it has been, UConn has been a double-digit favorite basically the whole way through. And even when they haven't been, they were just, 8.5 point favorites. They have won by double digits. I have a plus 750 ticket in my pocket, and now I'm kind of going, okay, who can beat UConn? Can Purdue beat UConn? You mentioned DraftKings look-ahead line 5.5.
I think they're the toughest matchup for UConn.
Then I look at, there's not a lot, right? We only each have a nickel on it. So we have a dime to win 7,500 as a collective unit on the podcast. And so do I say, okay, do I want to hedge in any form or fashion? And I don't think I do. I don't think UConn's going to lose necessarily. Chris just mentioned you could get here at DraftKings minus 115 essentially, money line on UConn over Purdue.
Essentially a 3-game parlay.
Need them both away.
Right, but they would be, in my opinion, they would be low $2, maybe minus 225, 235.
I think we might have a money line.
Do you guys have it 240?
245.
Oh, see, and so I think that's a little steep. Rightfully so, though.
You're right.
Listen, the bookmaker's been taking a bath, covered 10 straight, and it hasn't even really been close. So that's kind of the thought process here before I break down the game. That was like a little disclaimer that I want to say because I have a feeling we're going to be on opposite sides of this one.
I do have that feeling as well. I will tee you up with this since I know where you're going. If you're going to cash the Alabama plus 11.5 ticket that I think you're going to have in your pocket, you are going to need Alabama to give UConn the best game that anyone has given them over the run of these two tournaments, because not only has UConn covered every game, but their shortest margin of victory over this 2-year run is 13. So if you're covering 11.5, you're giving them a better game than anybody. They're athletic, they can shoot, they're well coached. Is this a mini hedge, or you truly believe in going Bama on this number?
So I think there's a little bit of a hedge factor there. Throw a little bit of money on the other side, hope for a good game. I'm going to say this much. I have not been an Alabama fan over the last couple of years. I was very critical of Nate Oates, not only with the Brandon Miller situation, but also last year during the tournament. I bet against him, CT Bets, and I actually had another Viva event. We were in Hoboken last year.
Oh, I remember.
And I had a San Diego State ticket in pocket with CT and San Diego State futures bet. So I was rooting hard against Alabama in that one. And I thought, they flat out lost that game, right? They had San Diego State on the ropes, couldn't get it done.
That was a little bit of a clunker.
It was. And I was very happy with the result. Now, this year, I thought, okay, what are we going to see from this Alabama team? And they have really surprised me. After not being that surprising in the SEC tournament, they have really flipped a switch. They gave Nate Oates a contract extension very early on. I thought, what in the world are they doing? And now I look like an idiot for thinking that. I like this Alabama team, but you're absolutely right. They are going to have to shoot lights out. They have that three-point scoring drought like they did last game. They're going to be in a world of hurt against this UConn team. I'm not saying that I think Alabama can win this game. And that's why I'm not hedging necessarily with the money line. Do I think there may be a little bit of value on the money line, though? Quite possibly. I think
there's value on the money line because the money line has to match up with the spread, and the spread's inflated because UConn mops everyone.
And rightfully so. The bookmakers are tired of getting banged up. I don't blame them here. Again, we're going to need a lot from this Alabama team. What we've seen from UConn being able to just bully their way in the paint, game in and game out, is something that Alabama is going to have to be able to stop. The flip side is I haven't really seen any teams get super hot from three outside of that Creighton team way back in February when they lost. What was that, a Tuesday night, I believe?
Tuesday or Wednesday night.
And, yeah, they lost on the road. It was a wonky scheduling spot. I'll admit that. But I will say this: Alabama has the ability to bang down some serious threes. They could get hot, keep it within the number.
The thing is, they're going to have to stay hot for a long time. CT, I know you're going to be flip side here, so tell me why UConn is going to not just win, but continue to win with the margin that they have all tournament and all last tournament.
Well, I think something that we need to first address is all going into the Elite Eight game versus the Illini, all we heard was UConn hasn't seen an offense like this all year.
Yeah.
They haven't seen a guard like Terrence Shannon Jr. all year long, right?
Yep.
And what did Terrence Shannon Jr. do? I was at that game. Jules, it looked like he saw ghosts and goblins, okay? And that's the factor that Dan Hurley has with this team. He makes it so intimidating for other teams for them to play against, and they step out on that court. Even when the Illini were doing their Elite Eight press conference, one of the reporters said, "You guys seem a little nervous. Are you guys okay?" And they didn't know what to say, so they were nervous going into that game. Jules, UConn obviously could be the first team since the Gators in 06 and 07
right?
to go back to back. They lose 3 starters. 5 of their top 8 scorers from last year. They pick up 1 kid in the transfer portal, and they somehow come back better. What a masterclass that Dan Hurley has put on. He's the best coach in the country, and we see that more and more as the tournament goes on. Here's the factor, Jules.
Yep.
Go ahead.
No, you go.
Here's the factor. Kelly talked about this. The last game when Bama played Clemson, okay? I had Clemson. I think you had Clemson.
Same.
All 3 of us, I think, did. Clemson goes up 12 or 13 early in that first half, okay? This is the difference. They couldn't put that game away.
Right.
When UConn goes up double digits tonight, because they will.
That's usually curtains.
And when Bama goes cold, which they will at some point. I'm not saying they won't hit any threes, but they're going to go cold.
Alabama was 10 for 15 from downtown in the second half against Clemson.
Correct, and they started 1 for 11 in that drought.
And they Alabama out-rebounded Clemson 40-28.
Here's the difference what Dan Hurley will do. He will step on your throat, and he will get on top of you, and he won't let you up. Jules, this team doesn't even crack a smile until they're up 20. I'm well aware how capable Bama is of scoring. They shoot the 3 at a very high clip. I think they ended up shooting at 44% versus Clemson.
Yeah.
They're going to need to shoot the lights out tonight because they're not going to have the same game plan that the Illini did. Mm-hmm. Going at Klingon is a terrible idea. We saw how that worked out for the Illini. They're going to have to shoot their way to a win. I'm not saying it's impossible because Estrada, Sears, Nelson, they could all knock them down. Mm-hmm. But Jules, I thought this was a little interesting. Sears' prop for over 3-pointers is 2.5. Did you see what Estrada's was?
I haven't.
Last time I looked at DK, it was over a half, juiced like minus 250. That was yesterday. I don't know if it's changed, but I thought that was very interesting. Yeah. Estrada over 3-pointers is a half? I think that's wild.
250, so they're saying he's going to hit one, but why isn't it 1.5?
Right. It doesn't make sense to me. Is Sears going to be the only one that hits him? They're going to have to hit him at a really high clip here. The bad thing for Alabama is Castle and Newton defend the 3 better than probably any 2 guards in the country.
Athletic guards that play defense.
Right. So I think it's going to be a very tall task for Nate Oates and company. I think the massacre tour continues for Dan Hurley and company, and I'm laying it today. I'm CT Chalk, call me.
As we say, CT, I have been loaded to the gills with UConn futures. Sweet 16, Elite 8, Final 4, make the national championship game, win it all. And I made sure that unlike last year when I just let these things roll, it's like, I'll just let them win and roll. No, I want to add to the spread each game because they cover every game. So I'm not getting off that bandwagon. It's been too good to me so far. And you're right about Hurley, my former coach. I'm a Rhode Island Ram.
That's right.
We were winning tournament games. We had it all made. We were looking so good, and UConn paid him too much money. I would have gone ahead and cut every other sport and just paid him and keep the basketball team. It would have been great. But hey, he's at UConn. I'll live with it. I'm UConn tonight. I'll lay it. And I'll also say Alabama with that defensive efficiency outside of the top 100. Don't mind some UConn team total, 85.5, 86.5. They should have a lot of points on the board. Again, if you're in the New England area, you want to watch these games with us tonight, we're going to a Viva Tequila Seltzer event. It's at Jake and Joe's in Braintree. Come on, swing by. You're going to get some free Vivas. You're going to get some free food. Bet the games. Watch the games with us. It's going to be a blast. Whip out the DK Sportsbook app and come join us. Hopefully, we will see you there. Kelly, CT, thank you so much for joining in studio.
Thanks, Jules. We'll see you tonight. Excited to have some Vivas with everyone.
Thanks, Jules. Let's cash some tickets together.
Let's do it. Final four. Let's cash some tickets. We'll be back on the other side of the break here on The Sweat.
Folks, it was about 2 weeks ago today. People around the world witnessed something extremely rare in the racing world. Max Verstappen, Mad Max, the Flying Dutchman, Pierce Dietrich's man crush, looked human for the first time in a long time. And would you look at this? Pierce Dietrich is here with us on the Sweat because Robin's racing, my guy. We got NASCAR to get to, the Japanese Grand Prix to tackle. But first, your boy, Pierce, barely getting through 3 laps down under a few weeks ago. Brake failure, my friend. All this tells me is Max Verstappen is the only man who can beat Max Verstappen. What do you think?
I don't even know if Max Verstappen can beat Max Verstappen. He doesn't look human. It was a mechanical issue. It had nothing to do with him. It was purely mechanical. So those things are going to happen. But as far as talent and next level, beyond that level, racing goes, Verstappen's the best. We're already seeing it again this weekend. Yeah, no one could beat him.
I mean, his run of 9 straight wins is snapped here 2 years after his and Red Bull's last retirement due to a mechanical issue. How sobering of a moment, though, Pierce, do you think this was for the team, considering this unbelievable run of reliability?
Yeah, it is true, but we expect that reliability out of Red Bull, and it's not really that unfamiliar. If we go back to the 2021 season or 2022 season, that's where Verstappen had a mechanical failure at Australia. The team regrouped, and then he went on to pretty much run away with the season. So we've seen this before. He comes back with something to prove, and he's out there at Suzuka already proving that, yeah, I'm back. I'm ready to win this. No one is even close to speed on him. A half a second. He's going to just destroy the field, probably win by 30 seconds.
Damn, really? Because I was going to say, like, big picture here, he now has a 4-point lead over Ferrari's Charles Leclerc in the driver's standing. He still has won 30 of the last 36 F1 races here, including the last 2 in Japan. He was minus 500 originally, now up to minus 600 on the DK Sportsbook to make it a three-peat. Can you give me any reason that he won't?
No, I can't. Next question. I mean, he came out and as fast as always. Fastest in free practice 1. We didn't get really a practice 2 because of weather. Goes out, again, is fast later on in the 3rd practice. Qualifies on the pole like we expect. Red Bull is on the front row. Hey, Mercedes looks better this week, although their qualifying effort wasn't great. Maybe Ferrari's closing the gap, but there's still a quite significant gap.
Okay, so hell, Pierce, give us something to bet. Like, take me to your favorite F1 bet then right now.
You sound desperate. Give me something to bet on in F1. How about taking Esteban Ocon to get a top 10 finish? It was at plus 650 yesterday. You might be able to get better odds now with him qualifying 15th. Not the greatest qualifying effort from Ocon, but still he did make it to round 2, which is an achievement for Alpine, who have struggled this season. They're unveiling or introducing some new upgrades, so that could be a positive. Maybe they don't have the flat-out trimmed-out speed, but they could have significant pace. And if you look at the last 4 races in the Japanese GP, Esteban Ocon has earned a top 10 finish. So if you're desperate to try to find something that pays well, Ocon top 10 in the Japanese GP.
Hey, how much love, though, does Carlos Sainz deserve after what he did in Australia, right? He wins that race after the mechanical failure, obviously, for Verstappen. That was like 15 days after he was having emergency surgery in the hospital here. That was also the second time, I believe, he has snapped a 9-race win streak for Verstappen.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I didn't even think he was going to be able to compete, not alone, and let alone go out and win the race. And the more spicy storyline is that he's out of this car at the end of the season. Hamilton's going to take this ride, and there's 8 seats, opening up. We're going to run through the every year we talk about, is Checo Perez going to get removed from Red Bull? You could see Sainz and Verstappen on the same team. I don't know. The world is open to Sainz. He's got to be pretty happy after that win, and I think he can go anywhere. The future is looking bright for him.
Yeah, his past does not look very bright in this race, though. He's never made the podium in 7 career starts, and in 2 starts in the Japanese Grand Prix with Ferrari. He's been retired, and then he has finished 6th. So the race is at 1 a.m. Eastern time, by the way, here in the States. So after a solid afternoon nap, Pierce, you'll be able to dial back in. This time, NASCAR. Where, Pierce? Once again, another short track in Martinsville. Are we talking same strategy as last week, like in Richmond, or does Martinsville present different challenges for drivers?
From the DFS perspective, it's going to be pretty similar. And even from the racing perspective, we've got a new short track package. We used it last week. It'll be here again. Short tracks in general, drivers that run well at the short flat tracks in Richmond and in Martinsville, although they are different, there are some correlations and similarities. Denny Hamlin won last week. We're going to expect him to race pretty well this week. From the DFS perspective, we really want to target drivers that are going to lead a lot of laps, run a lot of fast laps, because we do have 400 laps in this race as opposed to a road course or a plate race or an intermediate track. So it is very key that you get as many of those expensive drivers that are going to be up front leading laps into your lineups.
Why was Denny Hamlin booed at his home track last week, man? He's a Virginia guy, for crying out loud.
Hamlin has become a little bit of a villain lately with his newly found social media presence and his podcast and some of the things that he says. I even got into a late night fight a couple nights ago with the owner of a racetrack. He's getting a little loose. I don't know what's going on with Hamlin. You know, fans like to boo.
Yeah.
It's a part of it. It's, this is a big wrestling weekend, so sometimes you got to be a heel.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what Shohei Ohtani's doing. We talked about earlier in the show with Steve Buchanan. So anyone who has read your article on DKNetwork.com knows the answer to this question. But for those who have not read it, let's hear it. Your favorite DFS play among the top priced drivers. And I see Hamlin sitting there in the top 5.
Yeah, Hamlin's going to be the guy. We've already mentioned him. If you look at the last 6 Martinsville races, he's led over 100 laps. That's key. You have to get laps led. It's been a while since he has won at this track, 2015, but wins are overrated in fantasy NASCAR. We want good finishes, and more importantly, we want laps led. Hamlin brings that to the table. So he may not steal a win this week. He may not win this week, but we expect him, based on his previous data, to be out front and score a lot of fantasy points.
I mean, short track dominance through and through when you look at some of his numbers for sure, Pierce, and you mentioned it again in your article. So best DFS value then?
I'm going to go down Todd Gilliland. We're always rooting for Gilly here. If you look back at the 2019 Truck Series, he won at Martinsville. In 2021, he led over 100 laps, so he's very comfortable at the Paperclip in Southside, Virginia. His last 3 races in the Cup Series, all top 25s. That includes a 14th and an 11th place finish. If you want to get a little bit more interesting, you could possibly go with Harrison Burton, another guy that grew up just down the road in South Boston, Virginia. He won a 2020 Xfinity race at Martinsville, has 2 good races in the last 3. Struggled this year, so it is a little risky.
All right, so what do you want to do in terms of prop bets here for this race?
I'm surprised to see Hendrick coming in as the long shot manufacturer to win this race. So I'll take a Hendrick driver to win. You got Larson, you got Elliott, you got Byron. They may not dominate. They may not be faster than the JGR Toyotas, but we really just need them to lead the last lap of this race. And Martinsville is a very significant place for Hendrick. It's a place of triumph and tragedy. Unfortunately, about 20 years ago, Rick Hendrick's son, Ricky, died in a plane crash coming back from Martinsville. This has always been a very important race for them. They doubled down. They put a lot of the resources into winning the grandfather clock at Martinsville. So, hey, they may not be the best right now, but they're not too far from the JGR Toyotas. And we really just need them to lead 1 lap. And to get the longest odds for a Chevy when you've got a Byron, an Elliott, and a Kyle Larson, I'm all over that.
All right, well, let's get you out of here with this. Your winner bet at Martinsville. Talk to me, Goose.
Well, so then we've got to stick with the Chevys, and I'll go with Chase Elliott. As I mentioned, Martinsville, a really unique place. And this isn't just any unique place or any unique day. 40 years ago, Hendrick Motorsports was about to shut down. They were weeks away from shutting down. And Jeff Bodine went out and got a win, saved the team. The rest has gone on to history. Basically, every Martinsville driver or every Hendrick driver has won at Martinsville since, including Elliott. Elliott's career kind of needs a little bit of saving at the moment, so it would be special if he can go out there, get that win on this 40th anniversary. And as far as speed in this package, he hasn't been too far off. So give me Chase Elliott to win this race.
All right, Pierce Dietrich, it was good seeing you, my friend. Enjoy staying up and watching that F1 race in Japan at 1 a.m. You're going to be doing that?
I got wrestling, I got racing, I got an eclipse this weekend.
Yeah.
We're all booked up.
All right, protect your eyes, though. You can have serious damage that will last forever. So wear those special goggles, dude.
Got them.
All right, folks, it's almost 10 o'clock in the morning, which means we got one more block to go. Let's talk winners and losers if they step on Diggs trade with Jules and Steve to wrap things up. So much talk about the men's Final Four in this show. You did a great job with Kelly and CT earlier, Jules.
Thank you. I'm a natural host. Probably better at it than you.
Nah, I would disagree, but Mitch Moss and Paulie Howard are definitely better than me, that's for sure.
They are.
And probably so are their special guests that they're going to have tonight, like Mike Golick Sr., live from DraftKings Sportsbook in Scottsdale, Arizona, later today. 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock Eastern Time, special edition of Follow the Money here, leading up to the start of the Final Four games. So make sure you tune in, DraftKings Network, VSiN, or go there, hang out with them in person. Wherever you are in the country, you can still hop on a plane and go join them. That's later today, again, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock.
What a sales pitch. I'm going to get my ticket. If I didn't have to be at the Viva event tonight, I would be buying my plane ticket out to Arizona.
You and I are
just zoom right over.
Mashing some food tonight for sure. So that's at the DK Sportsbook.
You're obsessed with the food.
You have to eat to survive, Jules. The home of the waste management. Go check it out. Gentlemen, we've covered quite a bit in this show, right?
Yep.
So let's go ahead and let's ignite the cool down. So we start the show.
Ignite the cool down.
Ignite the cool down. So
no
we start
longer-
the show
we're no
by
longer
working up a
sweating.
sweat, right? Hey, listen. So let's cool down here a little bit. And if you missed any of the show, here's what we hit on today. Head over to the DraftKings YouTube channel, or, we got the broadcast going live on Twitter right now. You can check out what you missed. But Ross Tucker talked Diggs trade, some of the other win totals that he likes right now around the NFL and the DK Sportsbook. We talked about the playoff push with Jeff Ulrich as well. Steve's MLB best bets, F1, NASCAR picks, all the good stuff. So right now, Steve, cool down a little bit, man. Relax, all right? Let the body temperature come down. Let's rehash, I guess, some of the bets that you like today around Major League Baseball. Take us back into the bettor's box.
Well, you know what, real quick, just on that Diggs move. And I feel like this is not being talked about enough, but it's so important, is that they agreed to wipe the remaining 3 years off of Diggs' contract.
Yeah, just 1 year deal.
Now it's a 1 year deal.
Yep.
This is crucial.
What happens now? You are literally getting the best version of Stephon Diggs because he's playing for probably his last big contract. 30 years old, when free agency comes around, he'll be 31. This is probably the last big deal that he's going to get. Like, that is such a boss move by the Texans to do that, because now you have your young quarterback with arguably one of the best receivers in the league, alongside Tank Dell, alongside Nico Collins. Like, that offense is going to be humming this upcoming season. So I love that they did that. Give some incentive to Diggs. Not that I think he would have, the first year with a new team, I think you have some little extra oomph in there anyways, but now that you're playing for your next big contract, that is so huge for the team overall. I think it's going to do wonders.
I am excited to see how the young offensive coordinator, Bobby Slowick, will employ Diggs too, because after Ken Dorsey, offensive coordinator, was fired, what was that, 6-7 games, whatever it was, into the Bills season, Diggs' production dropped drastically under Joe Brady. And he's also given a lot of crap for really not showing up in the postseason. So he scored in each of his first 2 Buffalo playoff games here, and then he scored in none of his last 7. Yeah. Who's the biggest winner? Who's the biggest loser in that trade, Jules?
Oh, I mean, I like the deal for Houston. I don't think it's crucial for Houston because, again, I like Tank Dell. I like Noah Brown. I like Nico Collins. They pretty much had it all figured out. And now you're going to add Stephon Diggs to the mix, who's not going to be vintage Stephon Diggs.
He's going to be 31 this season.
But, like Steve mentioned, because of the contract, you don't get, a diva wide receiver that's got 3-4 years to play with, millions of dollars on his contract. It's a 1-year prove-it deal. He's going to be at his best. So, change of scenery, things generally always go well at the beginning before they unwind. This is going to be, no matter how many years Diggs is in Houston, this is going to be his best of them.
Yeah.
So adding, a capable receiver like that to the mix, and you get Mixon, you add pieces on defense, I think getting plus money on it's, a popular opinion, but I think getting plus money on Houston to win this division, where we got to see the Colts play with Anthony Richardson's essentially rookie year. The Titans are super down. We know the Jaguars are frauds.
I have no argument
great
to that
bet
right now. I'm out on them. currently.
Yeah, good,
I'll be
you
back
should be.
on them here in about an hour or so.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, how soon until Diggs pops off on C.J. Stroud because, Nico Collins and Tank Dell are getting all the looks and catches.
I don't think that's going to happen.
don't think so?
He's got to be on his best behavior.
He does.
He really does.
And then there were reports that came out late last night, too, that after that Week 1 loss against the Jets, Josh Allen, I guess, went off on Diggs inside the Bills' locker room. So that'll be interesting. And also, Josh Allen fantasy managers are big losers in that trade as well. Steve, cool off for me now with the cool down.
Yeah, so we went over a few bets that I liked earlier in the show here. Just going to reiterate that one that I liked for the Texas Rangers to go over 4.5 runs today, -120. Really like that bet there going up against the Houston Astros. This team has just been an absolute juggernaut on offense. I know it's early in the season, but they're already averaging 6.4 runs per game for the Rangers right now. Now they're going up against a Houston team that is really struggling in the pitching department. Like they got swept by the Yankees there, and a lot of it's had to do with how poor that bullpen has been. 6.58 ERA already for the Houston Astros relievers, and that's through 26 innings of work. So not a big sample, but not a small sample either when you're looking at those numbers there. They're putting a ton of guys on base, 5.5 walks per 9 innings already, and they've already allowed 7 home runs out of the bullpen. That is the most in the league already. Going up against this Texas Rangers team, which feels like all they do is hit home runs. Adolis Garcia has a personal vendetta against this Houston Astros team. You saw again last night, another home run for him against this team. I think the Rangers are in a great spot here to go over 4.5 runs against JP France, against that bullpen there. So give me the 4.5 runs for the Rangers today.
What do you want to cool off with here, Jules?
Well, I gave NBA off the top of the show. We did 2 strong segments on the Final Four. I'm actually going to go to baseball. Because I'm going to reiterate a thought on the Red Sox, because this is the only thing that I feel passionate about.
What are you going to curse
in
now?
baseball? No. Well, I will actually read one of my tweets from last night because it ties in, because the Red Sox are playing the Angels right now. It's a great tweet. I tweeted, Anthony Rendon is rapidly becoming my favorite baseball player. Baseball stinks, and he isn't afraid to put his hatred of the sport in the spotlight, despite being paid millions of dollars to play baseball. Alpha move. Red Sox are playing against this dreadful Angels team. They're probably going to keep beating this dreadful Angels team. They're 6-2. Let's say they get out of this series. They split the last 2. Let's say they get out at 7-3. Now people are going to be tricked into thinking that the Red Sox are good. The Red Sox are not good, right, Steve?
They're not.
You're a baseball guy.
They're not good.
They're not good. As you see my lovely tweet right there. So I'm on the Red Sox under 80.5 wins, as Steve is. I bet them at worse numbers too. If they're back to 80.5 after this series, maybe even more when DraftKings Sportsbook reposts live win totals, it's a great opportunity to get back under on the Sox. Yeah. They narrowly beat the Oakland Athletics, Sacramento Athletics, Las Vegas Athletics, whatever this team
They're
is.
Sacramento.
Yeah, they play in a beautiful stadium of 6,000. I could fill that with my best friends.
You know what? I want them. They need to make the World Series. I need to see them make the World Series. I need them to host the World Series in that ballpark.
That really
2027 against the Dodgers.
That would be
You heard it here first.
That
Mark the tape.
Actually would be unbelievable. But anyway, extra innings win that they shouldn't have won over the A's, and then a 1-0 game against the A's that Jansen almost blows. Yep. Like, the Red Sox aren't good, and the losses are coming. This is
especially in May. Especially in May, they got the Braves, they got the Rays a bunch of times, they have the Orioles a bunch of times, they have the Pirates. May's going to be a tough
I like how we say, watch out, the Red Sox have the Pirates as a reason to take the Red Sox under.
They're a wagon right now.
What a world we now live in.
Absolutely, and I look forward to talking about it on our podcast tomorrow.
All right.
They have a podcast.
Yeah, remember when you had one?
Yeah, I used to. They told me not to do it anymore.
Jesus.
Red Sox win total under. Congratulations on your promotion to hosting a podcast.
A 10-minute podcast. That's all
they were like, if we're going to do a podcast, we really want to make this lengthy. How about 10 minutes?
Yeah, that's great. I just sit there and piss Steve off while he says smart things that make sense.
What on earth?
The Segway Kings! Because remember how good we were at segues in our baseball segment?
Yeah,
today
glad.
was all time. Now listen, I know this year's
I'm really
Emmy
glad I'm
nomination.
not in that picture.
This year's Emmy nominations, okay, locally announced on Tuesday. Next year, Emmy nomination day, the Segway Kings will be on there. You heard it here first. As long as DraftKings pays for our submission into the Emmys.
I'm
Nice,
glad,
nice elbow pads. Safety first.
I'm glad that we've been hiring extra help, and this is what's come out of it.
Yeah.
What is that?
Good
vest?
job, Howard.
What was the vest I'm wearing? I'm not a big vest.
You were a great hire.
Anywho,
I didn't get to hear whatever
didn't
was
hear
just
it?
said in your ear.
I said I like that vest, and producer Drew gets in my ear and says that's because your head was on the body of a woman, which hey, it is what it is.
Cute top.
I'm really excited for tomorrow's show, everybody. We are going to dive deep into the Masters, baby. Tons of bets, tons of DFS, because Monday, Masters Week is here. Wear your green. I'm going to wear the same shirt that I'm wearing right now tomorrow.
What is that,
Just like I
golf?
wear the same pair of underwear that I'm wearing tomorrow. Same pair of pants.
Your new clothing deal.
And
gets
Steve,
off the hook
my
for that.
shirt is no longer wrinkled. How
You should have
about
seen
it?
how bad it was wrinkled.
It was pretty bad this week. We'll be pretty good tomorrow. We'll see you.
Sharp.